What does God say about women working outside of the home? Oh, the moms group from our church sent me that question not long ago. And as soon as I got it, I brought it home to my dinner table. I told my wife about it, and Kim said, "What are you going to say?" that's a good question. This is so important. Um, Let me give you a bit of background before I open my Bible and try to share an answer. I grew up in a home with a mom who stayed home. She was educated, a great teacher, and then she left her career to raise me and my brothers. I married a woman who, for 20 of the 21 years of our marriage, has worked almost all of them full time. Before and after children, my wife Kim has worked full time. She was raised by a mother who was an amazing Christian teacher for her whole career in ministry. I don't believe she took any time off during those important child rearing years. My brother married a woman who's very accomplished in her career. So I've seen both, but most of my life has been with women who are working outside of the home. I've seen the benefit of it. I've seen the capability and intelligence. I've seen the financial blessing as my wife brings home a paycheck. And more importantly, I've seen the people that she blesses with the gifts and talents that God has given her. But that group of moms then asked me about my experience. They asked me, what does God say about such things? Is God okay with this? Does God approve of it? Does God warn us? What does God say? Well, I'm going to give you three answers that I found in the Bible. Two of them come from a really famous chapter, Proverbs chapter 31. If you don't know, this is a section called the wife of noble character. So here's like this ideal godly woman. And I noticed this verse as I was reading these words over the other day. The wife of noble character considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable and her lamp does not go out at night. Interesting, huh? Her earnings. Not her husband went to work and then she took some of the money. No, I mean, this woman, who is called a woman of noble character, is buying and selling. She's managing the budget. Her arms are strong. Her work is vigorous. Her trading is profitable. She's exalted and praised by God. A New Testament example in Acts chapter 16, the Apostle Paul is blessed by a woman named Lydia. The Bible just says, I love this, Lydia was a dealer in purple cloth, which is like a luxury item back in the first century. Lydia, comma, a dealer in purple cloth. She was a worshiper of God. That's super amazing to me. Like her worship, her love of God was connected to her career as a dealer in purple cloth. And because of her resources, she was able to open her home and bless Paul and the spread of the gospel. So is God okay with a woman working outside the home? I think both Old Testament and New Testament would say yes. There's no thou shalt not have a career. Thou shalt not just stay at home and raise the kids. That's truth number one. Truth number two. The Bible also speaks so highly of the work that happens within the home. You can read a lot about this in Proverbs chapter 31. She's not just doing her thing out in the community, but her household is taken care of. It says her husband is respected at the city gates and he praises her. Her husband praises her, verse 28. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. I want to be careful in our culture that we don't minimize the beautiful calling of God to respect your husband and to raise up your children in Jesus. When a husband, like his cup is filled up, like he might get praised at work or with his friends or on the court, but when he steps in that house, there is a woman who sees it as her calling to build him up and love him, and hopefully he does the same for her. Like that, let us not minimize that or think that's some side dish or thing that we'll maybe get to if we have time and energy. It is such a beautiful thing in the sight of God when we train up our children in the way that they should go. When a parent who's at home is reading books to their kids, who's teaching those little hands how to pray, who's giving their children the gospel as they discipline them for their behavior. Like, I don't know that our world exalts that as much as it does a six-figure salary or a college degree. And so today I want to get you back to that biblical balance, that this is of great worth in the sight of God. What my wife does as a Christian preschool teacher to bring the message of Jesus' love to kids is incredible. And what my mother did, staying home, being actively connected at her church and raising me to know Jesus, that is just as incredible. So I pray that in these cultural debates, in these personal decisions, that we don't forget or choose one or the other. It's a both and situation, that God affirms the work of a woman outside the home, and he puts such great value on what happens inside of it too. Which leads me to my final points, and it's a point that requires a lot of wisdom. Here's my point. You and I are not God. God lives outside of time. The Psalms say that God doesn't need to slumber or sleep. He doesn't run out of energy to love people. He doesn't run out of time. He's God. He is the creator, but you and I are the creation. And what that means is that we live inside of time and space. We live inside of a physical body that only has so much energy. We can only make so many decisions in our day before we get what some call decision fatigue. We can only pour into so many people until we just run out of gas and need to recharge. And I think what every family and what every couple has to wrestle with is, as limited people, as parts of God's creation, can we love these callings that God has given us? If I've taken a vow to love you as Christ loved the church, can I do that if I'm working this many hours outside the home? If I vowed between God and our family and friends that I would make you feel respected, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, like, do I have enough gas in the tank to speak your love language, to show you respect if I pull into the garage and I got nothing left? And when I asked my wife this question, this is where the conversation ended up, that really couples have to be honest with themselves. Do we both feel loved? Are we raising our kids to know Jesus? Do they feel like they're getting lots of us, the best of us, or just the leftovers and the scraps? I can tell you this, and Kim has given me permission to share with you, that the hardest time in our marriage was when we had two little kids, 15 months apart. That was not the plan, by the way. And she was going back to full-time work, and I was going to full-time work as a pastor. I was working about 50 hours a week during the school year. She was probably working 50 to 60 hours a week. And the truth is, we just ran out of gas for each other. And we ended up in a counselor's office. And what we discovered is not that we didn't care, not that we didn't have the desire, we just didn't have the energy. And we had to think really deeply about our schedule, about being honest about what we could and could not do. Can I love you and respect you as you deserve to be loved and respected if I put in this many hours at my job? I think you all have to answer that question too. I'm super proud of my wife. A couple of years ago, we ran into a not as extreme situation, but a similar situation. Our parents are getting a little bit older. Our kids were super active teenagers who didn't have a license yet to drive themselves. So we looked at our work schedules and thought, does something need to give here? And we sat down and we prayed and we talked with friends, and we made a decision to be honest that we're created beings, that we're not God. We can only do a couple of things really well. And we want the things we do really well to be our relationship with Jesus, our relationship with each other, our relationship with our children. So is God okay with a woman working outside the home? He absolutely is. He values it. Is he okay if a woman stays at home as a wife and a mother? He absolutely is. Does God want us to be honest about the hard decisions we have to make? He absolutely does. And so I pray today that God would give my family and your family wisdom as you answer these really, really important questions.